friends, it's Carly and I'm back with another review. So if you'll all recall, a while back I did a review on an Iron Man figure that was a part of the Abomination series. And throughout that entire review I was expressing how frustrated I get with Iron Man figures in the Marvel Legends line. They just never seem to add up to me. They don't hold up to the extreme popularity of the character, and there are simple things it seems like they could do that they just won't, that would make the figures better. So at the end of that video I put it out to everyone and said, if you know of a great Iron Man figure, please let me know. I will order it and I will review it here. And I got a few responses that were great. So the first of those was from Zach Walters over on Facebook, and he found a Diamond Select Endgame Iron Man. It's a 7-inch figure, and he said that he thought it looked good and was curious to find out what I would think. So I went ahead and picked it up from Big Bad Toy Store. It was $27.99. He is here and I'm ready to talk about him. So here is our Mark 85 Endgame Select Iron Man figure from Diamond Select. So the very first thing you'll notice that is a win for me is the paintwork. You know that when I was talking about that Marvel Legends figure, the main issue that I take with what Marvel Legends does with Iron Man is that they simply don't invest in good paintwork. With this suit, it's so important for it to be metallic. I just feel like there's no way around that, and I don't understand why Hasbro keeps trying to get around that. It needs to be metallic. His name is Iron Man. This is his suit. You just can't keep finding shortcuts around a metallic suit and and come out with a successful figure. So right off the bat, the paintwork on this figure is stunning for me. I'm really, really impressed with it. It's shiny and bright metallic. There's some really great detail work. They use gold and silver to create all of the different elements of his costume or his suit, and his arc reactor is actually a molded piece that is painted in detail. It's not the best that I could have imagined it being. I still really think that having a piece of clear or translucent pale blue plastic over that and sculpting underneath it would be a better look. It would create that sort of glow from within look. But this is something, and I'm really impressed that they at least tried compared to Marvel Legends. So this sort of really shows the jumping off point that we're coming from. If I'm impressed that they even made an effort, that should show you how I feel about the way Marvel Legends has been going about this figure. And this Diamond Select is better in that respect. So the main issue that I took with Marvel Legends figures is definitely resolved in this Diamond Select figure with a beautiful paint job that is all over really stunning, and I appreciate the sculpt too. So again, this is his Mark 85 armor, and there is a lot on this armor that is, so there aren't a lot of small plates. As you can see, like every section of the suit is a large panel with more organic looking plates within it. And I hope that I'm expressing that clearly. So we're talking about big panels of armor with a lot of sculpting work on top of them rather than have plates overlaying plates. So it's a different look, and it really sort of conforms to his body more is what it looks like to me. And I think that as far as capturing the musculature, his ability, because Iron Man we know doesn't have any issues or limitation in movement in his suit. So it conforms to his body, it fits his body perfectly. You can see his body under the shape of the armor. So it's a really unique thing to capture, especially when you're dealing with something that is all metal. And I think that this is a really good attempt at that. So we get an idea of the musculature of his legs, his abdomen, his shoulders in particular, I think is a really great example of what I'm trying to express here. Let's see if we can get focus on this side. There we go. His shoulders are a really great example of that. And I think that overall, they really did a great job with the design work of this particular suit. And I think you can sort of hear from my tone that now we have to get into some of the tougher things. So let's start off with the accessories pack that came with this figure, because quite frankly, it's a little bit baffling. So we've got his hands. You can see how his hands are. And he then comes with 2 closed fists. Here. That's what they look like. Nothing especially dynamic about those, but having an open hand and a closed fist makes sense. Here is his, this is his snap finger with the infinity gauntlet on. Now the main issue with that for me is the scale of it. It's just a normal hand size, and it's really difficult to actually tell that it's the gauntlet. You can't really, and I know that it's a gauntlet for the suit, so it was a little bit more scaled down or whatever, but it was still pretty impressive. And I have a Infinity Gauntlet from a Marvel Legends figure that was from the suit, from the Endgame suit, that reads a little bit better. So I don't really get this. They didn't do a great job of painting it. The snap is pretty iconic, but it's just on a regular hand, so I mean, it's a little confusing that they didn't put more into making that the standout accessory of the pack, considering that the only other accessory is just another arm. It's an entire arm. And I've looked at this a bunch. So it's an open hand Infinity Gauntlet. This is a problem. So this is a problematic piece for me because, again, you can't really tell that it's the gauntlet. I actually sort of just realized that. I've been looking at this for days, wondering why there's this extra arm in there, and I see now that it's an open hand gauntlet arm, not snapping. So this is a trade out hand with the snap that goes on this, and then there are 2 closed fists. So there's the gauntlet and this. The problem primarily with these is that the paintwork on the gauntlet is just not good. Let's look. This is really sort of the best I can get, but you can see it's just too small for detail. It should have been bigger. Hasbro made it bigger, and I appreciated that. I just don't think these are very successful accessories. So that they're confusing. They're confusing at best. They should have done a lot more with the gauntlet, in my opinion. And then he also comes with this diorama stand, which I assume all of the other figures in this particular Endgame line come with. I might take a look at those because the price, $27.99, is good. It's a good price for a figure like this. Now let's get into the articulation. This is where we see Hasbro's expertise versus Diamond Select, because there are a lot of problems with the articulation here. So when we look at the head, we don't have a lot of issues side to side, but we have virtually, actually absolutely no movement back and just a tiny little bit forward. So there's no backward movement whatsoever, and there's no reason for that. There's no hindrance here. It just doesn't go back. And just one little turn down. I should point out too, before I get much further into the articulation, that something you notice right off the bat, and maybe this has something to do with why Marvel Legends don't use metallic paint. Maybe this is a characteristic of, you know, you have to do enough coats to get it this vibrant and this bright and shiny. Although I did not notice this on the Wonder Woman McFarlane figure. This whole figure is tacky. So it's not a wet paint feel, but it's sticky. The joints are sticky. It sort of just feels rubbery. I don't really know how else to explain it, but it feels like the paint didn't fully dry and they just lacquered over it, if that makes sense. It's very sticky and you can hear it. It's like, I don't know. It's a strange feeling and it's not pleasant. So that really stands out to me. So the head, I'm not 100% happy with. There's no reason for it not to move back, and it simply doesn't. Now when we get into the shoulders, there we go. That's what we get. Again, with this armor and the way that the shoulder joint looks, there should be no reason for this, and yet here we are. This is the amount of lateral movement that we get from his arms. I really just don't have anything to say about that except for that it's frustrating. There is no turning in his bicep here. His elbow is kind of double jointed, but it's a really unattractive joint, so you can actually see its workings, and it's just a clear piece of plastic inside. So it's kind of unattractive. It's just kind of ugly to me. And his hands turn all the way around, which is great. They do not move back because of this armor plate here. You can't move them back. And they do move forward, which is fine. So the bending in the elbow is strange, but now let's look. So see what we've got here. The reason that you can see the workings of the joint is back to the paint. We can see after having done that, I don't know if you can see right here and right here, those are actual flakes of paint. So by activating the joint, by bending the elbow, I actually scraped the paint off. So it's not supposed to, that was supposed to be painted, but this paint just scraped right off. So that could also have something to do with, like I said, the number of layers of paint that it took to get this vibrant metallic look. But again, we're talking a retail figure that is being mass produced, and I just don't feel like that can happen. I don't feel like that's an acceptable way to put a toy out there. If we look in this joint here, you can see the paint is, some of it's clinging, but yeah, it's getting scraped off every time I bend that elbow. So that will actually end up being just plain clear plastic with very limited use, because I haven't really used this figure very much. So that's disappointing. The position of the arms is weird, and the fact that they go nowhere is weird. I don't have an explanation for that, and I don't like it. It's not okay to have a figure. Now, it's possible, typically I'm looking for a really highly articulated figure. It's possible because of this diorama background, I get the sense that maybe this is supposed to be more of a statue with moderate articulation, and that's fine, but that isn't the type of figure that I would want to buy necessarily. And it doesn't really track, considering that it seems as though they're trying to capture most of the articulation points that we get in our normal Marvel Legends figures. It seems to me that Diamond Select here is trying to give us an upgrade. And if they're going to try to give us an upgrade, they need to at least meet the standard of what they're upgrading. And I don't think the articulation points of this figure meet that standard. Continuing on, now I really do like the movement in the torso. There's something about being able to rock him side to side like this. I feel like it gives him a very dynamic comic book pose, as if he is actually flying. This just really feels comic book to me, and I like it a lot. So the rocking side to side is very smooth, and you can pause him at any point in between. There are some click points, but for the most part, you're just moving him through. And then he bends back and forward. And while we're able to see that there is some negative space here, it sort of works because the abdomen continues up. So I would rather it didn't have that, but it's not the most frustrating that I've ever seen, like on our Wonder Woman figure there. There is no turning in the waist, so we've got all of our turning up here in the top part of his torso. With the legs, again, we've got the look, we've got the space here that shows us that this is where these joints meet. We've got some forward movement, not a lot. There's none backwards. His leg does not go backwards at all. And side to side, this is pretty much what we get. So the articulation, it's these major joints here, the ball and socket of the shoulder and the hip joint, that are just not functioning the way that they should. There's turning in the thigh. And there, again, I imagine the paint is rubbing off, although that isn't really going to be seen, but you can hear the sort of rubbing, and it hopefully is giving you an idea of the tackiness that I'm talking about with the paint overall. The knees are great. I'm really happy with those, and a lot of times I'm not. With big muscle, or not, I am, but you know, with muscular calves and muscular thighs, sometimes they come together in a way that is not complete. This is complete. It completely bends. There is that movement in the ankle, which is great. Forward and back. So those are great. There's no turning here. And the turning in the foot, while it does go 360 degrees, this joint is strange. It's just strange. I don't really know how to explain it. It does turn but there are bits of armor that come down that hinder that a little bit. And it just feels funny. It feels awkward. It turns in all types of ways other than what I'm trying to do. So the foot always sort of ends up askew. And it's just, it's strange to work with. It's not intuitive by any stretch of the imagination. You have to really mess with it to get what you want, which is to stand up. Because this guy is pretty heavy. So he is substantial in weight. He feels like he is sculpted solid, which I really appreciate. I think that that makes it easier to get the different poses that you want. But as I've tried to get him to stand up, it seems like he's a little bit top heavy. So I really struggle with actually putting him on his background stand. And it's unfortunate that although he has holes in the bottoms of his feet here for a peg stand, which you can see, there is no peg on this stand. So really it's a matter of balancing. He's got all of what you would need to give him a peg stand so that he could stand and display beautifully, but he doesn't have a peg on his stand. So that also gives me the idea that they're trying to have a fully articulate figure that you can pose into standing, but some of the missteps are really just preventing that from happening. So overall with this figure, it is not one that I would put at the top of my list, although with my complaint of the paintwork, I think that the look is really beautiful. That was one of my big issues, and I think that they did a great job if you're planning to use this as a statue. If you just want him to stand on your shelf, he can look beautiful, and I think you can see that here by me just holding him up. If you want to pose and photograph this toy, I do not think he's going to work. As far as an upgrade of Marvel Legends, I don't think I can call this figure one because he simply doesn't articulate in any type of way that is comparable. So Marvel Legends for me is really missing the paintwork on their Iron Man and the attention to detail in the suit. While Diamond Select picks up some of those dropped balls, there's a lot of things that they just didn't execute well, and there's a lot of things that it seems like they really might not have researched enough, or maybe they're just not prepared to make a toy like that quite yet. This is not very playable. So that is my first review of a recommended Iron Man to replace my Marvel Legends. This guy, I would say, is a fairly good statue to put on my shelf. I like him a lot more than the last Iron Man I looked at. So there's definitely a plus side. The price of $27.99 is pretty good for this. And if you were going to make a display of all of the Endgame figures in this Diamond Select series, I think it would look really great. I think that all in all, they'll probably look really great, but not be super playable. I've got another suggestion from another viewer about an Iron Man to try. And he is an actual true 112. So I am looking into purchasing that. It is a Mezco figure. We will see what I think of that. And in the meantime, I will be looking at some new NECA figures coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I look forward to doing another one for you soon. Send your suggestions. I'm enjoying looking at things that you guys recommend for me. Keep your comments coming in. I read all of them and I do my best to take the information you give me and get better. Have a great day, friends. I will see you soon. Bye.